On this episode of RevHang, Ben and I talk about the Belgian Grand Prix. Let's do it. Hello everybody and welcome to RevHang. I'm your host Nathan Nevue, and alongside me today is my fellow gearhead and co-host Ben Bagley. How's it going, Ben?
Pretty good. Just trying to get some fun in the sun in while it's warm, but not too warm, and get ready for fall.
Yeah, we've only got probably a couple more weeks of this nice weather, and then back to the good old Pacific Northwest fall rain.
Yeah. Yeah, back to the rain.
Yeah, it's okay though. It's been kind of a dry summer, so the rain will be good.
As long as it stays away for the IndyCar Grand Prix this weekend, I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully you don't have to deal with thunderstorms, but in Portland that shouldn't be too much of an issue.
We'll see. You never know.
You never know. Never know. Oregon has some weird weather. But it's not a weather podcast. This is a racing podcast, and we do have a race to talk about this week. All we've got this week is the Formula One Belgian Grand Prix. So let's just jump right into that. We'll start with the grid lineup. Not really qualifying because everybody qualified and then stuff got all mixed up because of penalties. Yeah, so here's the grid as they lined up on Sunday. First through fifth was Sainz, Perez, Alonso, Hamilton, and Russell. 6 through 10 was Albon, Ricciardo, Gasly, Stroll, and Vettel. 11 through 15 was Latifi, Magnussen, Bottas, Verstappen, and Leclerc. And then 16 through 20 were Ocon, Norris, Zhou, Schumacher, and Tsunoda. One thing to note is Pierre Gasly did not start from his grid spot of 8th on the grid. He had an electrical failure that had to be dealt with at the beginning, and so he started from the pit lane.
Yeah, we had a lot of engine changes engine, transmission, all sorts of stuff. We hit that mid-season mark where people are trying to get in good motors before everything comes crashing through.
Yeah, we had, I think it was like 5 people take back of the grid penalties for engines. The reason being is because Spa is a very much a power circuit. It's also the first race back after the summer break. And so people have engine upgrades that they want to put in before they get to all the power circuits, because we got Monza coming up too. And so Spa is a pretty easy circuit to overtake at, or it can be. So a lot of drivers thought that now was as good a time as any to take that engine penalty. But what this does mean is that for most of these drivers, any engine parts replaced from now on will be penalty spots. And I could see that happening with most of the teams, because I don't think any team has an engine that can quite last 9 races yet.
Oh man, could you imagine?
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it worked out better for some teams than others. And like you said, Spa is definitely an overtaking track.
Yeah. And also, on Sunday morning, it was announced that Spa will be retained through the 2023 season. So we will have Spa on the grid next year, or on the calendar next year. I don't know if there's another extension planned past that. But kind of one of the big news stories with Spa is that it's not really got a long-term deal with F1, and people think it's going to drop off once more circuits come in, paying more money, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we'll see. I really like Spa, so I'm pulling for it to stay.
Oh, me too. It's probably my favorite track on the calendar, so I would be very, very upset if it dropped off, along with like 95% of the F1 fan base.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody loves Spa. It would be a shame,
especially Red Bull this weekend.
Yes, Red Bull this weekend did very much love Spa. So yeah, let's get into the race. At the beginning, Sergio Perez got a kind of a rough start and fell back into the fight between Alonso, Russell, and Hamilton. Because of this, Sainz was able to kind of gap the field on the first lap. He had a nice little cushion to second place. In turn 5 on lap 1, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton came together, and it damaged Hamilton's car terminally, causing him to pull to the side of the track and end his day. This was Hamilton's fault. I mean, he took the responsibility for it.
Yeah, which is always good to see, but it, yeah, he just cut way too early. Just closed the door on Alonso.
Yeah, he tried to close the door on Alonso when Fernando was very much alongside him. And, yeah, Hamilton took the blame, which, like you said, is good to see from drivers, because a lot of drivers will always deflect it to the other person. But we also had some spicy comments from Fernando Alonso after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Alonso basically said over the radio that Hamilton only knows how to start and race from first place, and that he's unable to do it from anywhere else on the grid.
Yeah, it seems like he's cooled down a little bit since the race, but he was pretty hot.
Yeah,
coming right off it. He even, as he passed Hamilton's stricken car, he waved at him.
Oh, did he really?
Passed by during the race, yeah.
I didn't
so
know
that was cheeky.
Yeah, I didn't see that. That's yeah. Alonso was definitely heated after that. Not very happy because he did have front wing damage that he had to nurse for the rest of the race. But yeah, so that was kind of the big incident, talking point kind of thing for this race, was Alonso and Hamilton coming together. But after that,
we did have a Latifi crash though.
Yes, we did, of course. On lap 2, Latifi went off into the gravel and then spun across the track, taking out Valtteri Bottas and ending his race, and that caused a safety car. You know, it just, that sucked so much to see.
He almost took out a lot more cars, too.
Oh, yeah. Ocon was right there.
If the Alpine hadn't avoided, that would have taken up the entire track, and, you know, that would have stopped up other cars, and, ugh.
Yeah, that could have been ugly, but it was a shame that Latifi spins, takes out Bottas, sending him into the gravel and beaching his car, and then Latifi just turned around and kept going.
Yeah. Wow. I saw it, and I was honestly worried. It's like, no, he just took out Zhou.
Oh, yeah.
What terrible
that
luck.
Been terrible. Zhou did actually finish the race this week, though.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah. On lap 4, Charles Leclerc was forced to pit because he had a visor tear-off stuck in his brake duct. And based on the timing of when that all started happening, a lot of people think that it was actually Verstappen's tear-off. Because all of his problems started when he was directly behind Max. And so a lot of people are saying that Max threw a green shell and, you know, all that good stuff. The Mario Kart damaging the car, forcing him to pit. But yeah, so that caused some problems. His brakes started to overheat, which made it really hard to drive the car. And then he also had one of his sensors in the car burned up because of the overheating, and that becomes important later in the race.
It's a secret tool that'll help the FIA later.
Yeah. We'll get to that. But Verstappen was making a very early charge and was up to P6 from, he started P14, right? Yeah. He was up to P6 by the end of lap 5. So 8 positions and 5 laps, not too shabby. He continued to pass. Yeah.
It feels like I blinked and all of a sudden he was in first, and I was like, okay, this race is over.
Yeah, I was expecting Verstappen to make his way through the field. You know, I was reading on Instagram on a WTF1 post where they had like a poll, and they had, you know, Verstappen will either win or podium or finish lower. I thought he was going to podium. I figured he'd probably get second. My thinking was that Sainz would drive out and kind of make a nice cushion to himself, and then Verstappen would be able to pull up and pass Perez. But I didn't think Verstappen was going to be nearly as dominant as he was this race.
It was silly. Yeah, it was. Yeah. People complained a lot last few seasons about Hamilton being so dominant, and that's what it felt like watching Max this race. It was the same thing as Hamilton in Brazil, where just no mistakes, everybody was standing still, and it was just him on the track.
Yeah, Verstappen turned the AI to 0%.
Yeah. Turned traction control on.
Yeah, he was absolutely flying. He was passing drivers at a rate of like one guy per lap until lap 12 when he finally took the lead from Perez. Yeah, he was just unstoppable. Like it no one could do anything to counter his driving, and he was so fast on the straight. Whenever you'd see him approaching a car, and then he had DRS, they said it was an 8 km/h difference in speed, but it looked like way more.
He
than
made
that.
It seem like way more, yeah.
It was kind of insane. But yeah, so he passed Perez for the lead on lap 12. Sainz pitted on lap 12 due to high degradation. Verstappen was able to stretch his stint until lap 16, and then came out a few seconds behind Sainz, who was able to get the undercut. Verstappen took the lead from Sainz on lap 18 into turn 5, and then on lap 21, Sergio Perez caught up to Sainz for second place. After that, the two Red Bulls kind of just drove off into the sunset. Neither of them were challenged after that remotely. The midfield was kind of mixing itself up, though, throughout the race. Esteban Ocon made a couple of really crazy moves, and he had two double overtakes.
Fans rise up.
Yeah. 2 double overtakes in this race. One was into, what's the name of that corner? I don't remember.
It was the chicane, right? Or was
No,
that the second one?
Well, it was that like really fast left-hander, and then the bus stop chicane at the end of the lap. So he kind of completed it into the bus stop chicane. But that was the first double overtake. I don't remember exactly the drivers that it was on. And then the second one, which was our overtake of the week, was on Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah, that was the one that it was into turn 5 after Eau Rouge and Radeon. So, yeah. That was a pretty spicy move. He was, basically they were 3 wide going into the chicane at the end of the longest straight.
Vettel had a pass on Gasly on the outside, or rather the inside. And then he was doing well, and then both cars just came up alongside him and flanked him, and then Ocon was able to just brake a little later going into the chicane.
Yeah, he was around the outside for the first part of the chicane, which gave him the inside line for the second one. And he was able to pass both of them in one nice move. And that was our overtake of the week. On lap 43, Ferrari with another head scratcher. They pulled Leclerc into the pits to go for fastest lap, but they didn't quite judge it right and ended up fighting Alonso for P5 when Leclerc had some 20-something second lead on Alonso. They pitted him, and then they were fighting wheel to wheel for about a lap. Leclerc ended up passing Alonso and getting a lap in, but he finished P5, but he got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that demoted him to P6 behind Alonso. So the reason he got that speeding in the pit lane penalty was because of that sensor I was talking about earlier that burned out. I don't know exactly what. He didn't really specify what kind of sensor it was, but he said a sensor burned out, and that was the reason he got the penalty. I don't know how much truth there is in that. I mean, it sounds plausible, but it's a little strange.
We're not F1 engineers.
Right, exactly. But all we know is he got that 5-second penalty, and that would not have happened if Ferrari had just left him out in P5 where he was comfortably.
Yeah, or rather he would have had the 5-second penalty, but he would have had a 20-second buffer to Alonso.
Exactly.
To retain 5th.
Yeah, I don't know if he got the penalty when he pitted, or was it at the end of the race when he turned around and went back into the pit lane into Parc Fermé.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I don't actually know exactly when it happened.
I mean, allegedly it was a 1 kilometer infraction, like 1 kilometer an hour. So I'm not good enough to be able to tell the difference between 1 kilometer over. So it could have happened at any point and I would have noticed.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But it did happen regardless, and he ended up finishing P6 because of that. When even if he got the penalty, if he hadn't pitted, then he would have comfortably finished P5 still. But that was kind of the race. After Verstappen took the lead, it wasn't there wasn't too much going on. There weren't any safety cars or even really yellow flags after that. So it was kind of business as usual once Verstappen got to the front. And Verstappen had the fastest lap and also driver of the day, which I think was very deserved. Yeah, that was very much Hamilton-esque, like you said, Brazil, one of the few rare, once every few seasons you get a drive like that where someone comes from the back of the grid and wins. It's pretty nuts. But let's go over the results real quick. In first place, winning the race, obviously, was Max Verstappen. Completing the podium in second and third were Perez and Sainz. 4 and 5 were Russell and Alonso. 6 through 10 were Leclerc, Ocon, Vettel, Gasly, and Albon. 11 through 15 were Stroll, Norris, Tsunoda, Zhou, and Ricciardo. And then 16 through 18, rounding off the finishers, were Magnussen, Schumacher, and Latifi. And then our two DNFs were Bottas and Hamilton. So, yeah, it's the new technical directive that changed the floor regulations a little bit this race has not seemed to affect Red Bull very much.
No, they're, especially since they were complaining about it the most, or at least being the most vocal about it, it didn't really seem to actually matter a whole lot. I would say Mercedes looked way slower than usual compared to any of the other teams.
Yeah, it was kind of odd because everyone thought that it was going to be a big benefit to Mercedes and McLaren and a couple other teams, but yeah, Ferrari seems to have been hit by it a little bit. They said they had to make some changes. Red Bull said that they weren't too affected by it, which they definitely backed up on the track.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I just feel like the gap has now, I feel like it's changed, and now Ferrari doesn't quite have the strongest car, and now it's Red Bull with the strongest car, and then Max in that car just is, that combo is scary.
Yeah, it seems to be unbeatable.
Yeah. They're so far ahead, because now Perez was way faster this weekend. So I don't know if they took some upgrades that they didn't really advertise, and so it kind of just balanced out and extended their lead even. But yeah, it didn't affect them as much as I think a lot of people thought it was gonna. A lot of people were looking forward to Mercedes being pulled up to the front of the field again, but
Yeah.
that didn't quite happen.
Yeah, well, we've seen the Red Bull cars be just monsters on the straights, and Spa's nothing if not one of the faster tracks in the roster, so this kind of was a track catered perfectly for them coming out for the second half of the season.
Yeah, we do have Zandvoort coming up next, which is very much not a power circuit. It's more comparable to like Hungary and even Monaco. It's such a small, like, tight track. The circuit itself is not very wide and doesn't really cater to wheel-to-wheel racing very much. But it was definitely a spectacle last year with all of the orange smoke. So we'll see if that happens again. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, so I'm sure Max Verstappen is going to win that one too. But it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the field shakes out on such a tighter track, especially after these changes. You might see them take more effect on a tighter track than somewhere like Spa.
Yeah. But then, yeah, after Zandvoort is Monza, and that is the power track of power tracks. It's pretty much just like 4 straight lines with a chicane or 2 in there.
Yeah.
Hamilton this week made a rare race-ending mistake. He doesn't really do that a lot. He doesn't crash too often, and when he does, it's not usually his fault, or it's pretty 50-50.
Yeah.
So to see him just blatantly make an error like that, we haven't really seen a mistake like that from Hamilton since, like, Germany 2019.
Yeah, I couldn't remember offhand, but Germany 2019 that's 3 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's the last time I can think of Lewis just like. I mean, he didn't even end his race with that mistake. I can't remember the last time Lewis made a race-ending mistake that was 100% his fault. But that's besides the point. It has been a while, is basically what I'm getting at. Yeah, there was Azerbaijan last year, but that didn't end his race. Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's long enough that we have to think about it for way too long.
Yeah, when I could name probably like 3 or 4 of Max's off that have happened in the last year. But anyway, Mercedes is definitely on Ferrari's level at this point. I think that's going to be a fight for second place in the championship. That's kind of where I think the action's going to lie now, because Red Bull's just way too far in front. And then our last kind of talking point here is that Albon took home another point for Williams this week. So good drive from him. He actually had a really good qualifying. Like, even without all of the penalties, he still would have qualified, I think, P9. Which in that
still
Williams
Q3.
is fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, he really pushed that sled.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope maybe this is maybe a small sign of hope and development for Williams.
Yeah, definitely. And for Albon.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to see Alex have good performances. He's kind of had a up and down career. But I definitely want to see Williams in the midfield, hopefully soon. Like next year, please.
Hurry up already.
Yeah, I hate seeing them at the bottom still. It's like it's becoming their thing, and I don't want it to be, because they're such a likable team.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the Belgian Grand Prix. We'll go over the championship standings real quick. Notably, Sergio Perez jumps up to second place, passing Charles Leclerc. So it is no longer Verstappen and Leclerc 1-2. I think we could all see this coming eventually. But
it was more a matter of when.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Carlos Sainz and George Russell are quickly approaching Leclerc. One bad race from Leclerc, or one more bad race, I should say. And he might not even be third. Like, man, it's just they're
George Russell
so
might be
hard.
looking at that. Yeah, I think George Russell's probably a very strong contender for that third spot right now.
Yeah, so Leclerc has 188 points, Sainz has 171, and Russell has 170. So they're all right there, just fighting for that. Well, they're still fighting for second, because Sergio Perez has 191. But I would not be surprised if Perez started to extend that. Yeah. I think Ferrari's just choking super hard, like they have been for the last 4 weeks.
Last 4 years.
Yeah, right. It's like they do this whenever they have a championship challenging car. They tend to do well at the beginning of the season, and then they just falter for the second half, and then whoever the dominant team is runs away with it.
Yeah. Are we counting 2019? Are we counting 2019 as a good season?
Yeah, because Seb was pretty close to Lewis at the end. I mean, 2017, 18, and 19, Ferrari had the second best car, and they were pretty close to Mercedes. And they had like legitimate title fights all 3 years. Those years. 2020 was absolutely dominant by Mercedes.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking maybe the past 3 years. 2019 was always kind of marred for me because of the alleged engine mods that Ferrari had.
Right, and who knows how long that was actually going on.
Yeah, so I have a hard time counting 2019. So either way, Ferrari's been building up a habit of choking pretty hard.
Yep, it's kind of becoming predictable. It's happened so many years now. But I'm hoping they can turn it around in the future. I know a lot of people want to see Ferrari winning championships again because it's been 15 years, I think. 2007. Yeah, Kimi Räikkönen was the last Ferrari champion.
Yeah, so when I was in second grade.
Yeah, same here.
So it's about time.
Yeah, it's about time. They need to get back on that horse. But
Horse.
yeah, totally intended there. And then also in the championship, Alpine is kind of pulling a small lead ahead of McLaren. I think it's 18 points right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a ton. McLaren can definitely come back, but they need to start, outperforming Alpine, and that's not happened in the last few
I don't
weeks.
think it's happening.
Yeah, Alonso is so strong, and Ocon is really consistent, and so, yeah, I don't know if McLaren can quite do it, unless Ricciardo starts, coming into form, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, at least not based on this race.
Yeah. So that's the championship standings right now. We already went over our overtake of the week. It was Esteban Ocon on Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly. That double overtake around the outside into the chicane. For the pit stop championship, it's a Red Bull 1-2, just like the race. With Verstappen in first, with a time of 22.322. And Perez in second with the time of 22.349. Let's see, we got any notables up high. Gasly's up high for AlphaTauri. Don't see much else super surprising in the points. But I don't know. We shouldn't really be surprised with AlphaTauri being up high anymore because as it stands right now, they're second in the Constructors' Pit Stop Championship.
A prestigious title.
Right. I know. They're probably super stoked about it. So they're only 250 some odd points behind Red Bull. That's just, 10 wins with Red Bull DNFing both cars. No big deal.
Wait, is that even possible? How many races do we have left?
Oh, that's not even possible. So I think Red Bull has won. Yeah, Red Bull's won the Pit Stop Championship then.
Incredible.
They probably did a couple weeks ago, actually. But all right, so Red Bull is our Pit Stop Constructors champions. Congratulations to them. I'll ship a trophy out somewhere in Milton Keynes. I'm sure it'll get to the right place.
Yeah.
Drivers, I don't think it's quite over yet, and it's at least between Perez and Verstappen. Perez is still ahead by almost 60 points, looks like. More than 60 points. Yeah, 62 points. So, I don't know. This was not nearly as close as I was hoping it was going to be this year.
No, I thought we would have some, balance. Maybe the slow teams have really good pit stops, but they don't.
Well, it's like we got different levels of teams here. We got Red Bull on their own level at 410 points. And then AlphaTauri, McLaren, and Ferrari are all within 4 points of each other. Fighting for second. And
Aston Martin is much higher up than I thought they'd be. I will give them that.
Yeah, Aston Martin and Alpine are actually tied right now with Aston Martin in 5th place. Actually, I don't know who would be in 5th. I'd need to go and look at the tiebreaker. Because I don't think this automatic spreadsheet thing I've got going quite accounts for that. Mercedes is right there with Aston Martin and Alpine, only 12 points behind those two. And then it's Williams, Alfa Romeo, and Haas at the bottom, and that order will probably not change. Actually, Haas could catch up to Alfa Romeo. They're only 13 points behind him, but as the season has...
I was going to say past that, there's not really any chance of shifting around down there.
Yeah, not really. So that's the Pit Stop Championship for this week. Let's move on to our predictions for the Belgian Grand Prix. I guess I don't remember who went first last time. It's been a month or so since we've done this. I guess I'll go first. Well, just to remind everybody first, the top five were Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Russell, and Alonso. The top five I had last time were Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, and Leclerc, with Perez as my dark horse. And what'd you have, Ben?
I had Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Perez, with Leclerc as my dark horse.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah, so we missed.
We missed big time. You got the winner. You got the race winner. So good job on that. I got a dark horse, which I guess is okay. But past that, yeah, we weren't too on it.
I would like to point out that I did have except for Hamilton, I did have pretty much the top five locked in, just not in the right order.
You did, yep. You were pretty close.
And Leclerc got a penalty, so that also kind of knocked him out. But aside from that...
Right. Yeah. Fastest lap, it went to Verstappen this week.
Yeah, I had Leclerc. You actually got that one right.
Yeah, I got it right. I had Verstappen, so I'll take that one. And then driver of the day went to Verstappen. I said Lando Norris.
And I said Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, neither of those happened.
No.
Vettel actually didn't have a bad race.
Yeah, Vettel, he was close. I'll give myself a solid close on that one.
Yeah. I think he finished P8. So, not a bad race for the four-time world champion. Lando Norris kind of had a rough race. He got stuck in DRS traffic and couldn't really move. So, he kind of just sat back there. I think 12th, I think, is where he ended up. Something like that.
Yeah, he got taken the sights.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just, enjoying the trees and hills and all that good stuff around Stavolo.
I know I would.
Yeah, I want to go to Spa so bad one day. That track looks incredible.
Hopefully it's still around by the time we have enough money to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be around. I don't know if F1 will still be there, but I'd love to go rent a Porsche and drive that track or something. I don't know. That'd be fun.
Right? Yeah. Who knows? With our luck, it's going to be only Formula E races there.
Considering they only do street circuits, that would be quite interesting. But
just depends on how long it takes us to save up.
Yeah, that's true. That could vary wildly. But anyway, let's move on to our predictions for the upcoming Dutch Grand Prix.
All right, I'll go first on this one.
Okay.
Obviously, the first is going to be Verstappen. I like making kooky predictions, but I also like winning.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put Verstappen, Perez. I'll put Russell after that. And then for fourth place, I'll have Leclerc. And then in fifth, I'll have Alonso. And I'll put Sainz as my dark horse.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna say Verstappen wins. Again, because I like points too. Who do I say second? I'm gonna say Leclerc second. Perez third. Russell fourth, and Hamilton fifth. And then my dark horse will be Fernando Alonso. I'm betting Sainz gets sucked into those notorious gravel traps. Because there are some really, really difficult corners at Zandvoort, and on the outside of those corners are really deep gravel traps. And so
he hears his father's voice in his head. Son, go to the gravel. It's in your blood.
Yeah, it's in his family. It's in his DNA. He just has to rally across the gravel. But yeah, I am betting that Sainz and gravel will make another
appearance.
Just based on the fact that it's very, very easy to launch yourself into a gravel trap at that track. I have done it many times in the F1 game. All right, so fastest lap prediction.
It's gonna be Red Bull.
It's gonna be Red Bull. I mean, I'm going to say Verstappen. 'Cause...
I'll put Perez just to be a little contrary.
Okay. And then driver of the day?
Oh, man. Man, I really hope it's Leclerc, but if I'm honest, I'm going to say Russell, I think.
Russell, okay. Who do I think is going to stand out at this track? I'm going to say Fernando Alonso.
Oh, I just thought about that. No, I'll stick with Russell.
Okay. All right. So those are our predictions for next week's race. But that's kind of all we got on the docket for this week. Do you have any words of wisdom for the wonderful people, Ben?
Let's see. I had motorcycle safety last episode. Cardio, always a good thing to work on. You can put in so much work at the gym, but if you can't run a mile, what are you doing? Just once a week, get out there and try jogging.
Yep. Cardio. Rule number one. There we go. Everybody knows rule number one is cardio.
I would put it like a solid rule number 3.
Have you seen Zombieland?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, just making sure.
Yeah, I didn't think about that when you said it, but now I think about it, yeah. Now I feel stupid.
No, you're good. It was a subtle reference.
Go back and rewatch it now.
Yeah, I'm done. I might do that tonight. That sounds fun. But anyway, thank you everybody so much for listening to this episode of RevHang. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or rating on the platform you listened on. Really helps us out, gets us into the algorithm, and hopefully out to more people who will hopefully enjoy hearing us talk about things that we really don't know about. If you'd like to follow our thoughts and opinions on the motorsport world, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at RevHang Media. If you have any thoughts or questions about racing, or even about me and Ben, post a tweet at #RevHangPodcast, and we may feature your question on the next show. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMeetsWorld and or myself at 2n_squared. While you're at it, go check out our website at RevHang.com, where you can find a calendar of upcoming races, updated standings for the racing series we talk about, along with our wildly inaccurate predictions for the F1 season. We'll return in a week to talk about the Dutch Grand Prix, but until then, I've been Nathan.
And I've been Ben.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
See you guys.